That's it, I whispered, my voice barely audible over the rustling papers in the lawyer's hands. Mr. Barlow, Grandma's longtime attorney, glanced at me, eyes flickering with discomfort. And to my granddaughter, Emily Carter, nothing. The room was silent. My Uncle Gerald leaned back smugly in his chair, arms folded across his chest. Aunt Lila didn't even try to hide her satisfied smirk. We were sitting in the sunroom of Grandma's house, the same room where she used to read me stories while I sipped orange juice out of a teacup. Now it was a courtroom in disguise. A place where love was reduced to legal language and betrayal was dressed in family smiles. And just like that, everything I had spent years helping Grandma build, her trust, her garden, her digital diary, her peace, was signed away. But I didn't flinch, because what they didn't know was that I had the real will, and it was still sealed, still untouched, hidden exactly where she told me to keep it. My name is Emily Carter, and if you had met me just 2 years ago, you might have described me as the quiet granddaughter, the helper, the one who brought soup, who remembered doctor's appointments, who always said thank you, even when no one else did. I wasn't flashy or loud, or the kind of person people scrambled to impress. I didn't own a big house or drive a shiny car. I worked from home as a freelance tech assistant for seniors, helping them set up their phones, remember passwords, and FaceTime their grandkids. I lived in a modest apartment just outside of Asheville, North Carolina, 5 miles from the house where my grandmother, Elaine Carter, lived alone after my grandfather passed away. After Pop died, Grandma and I got closer than ever. I'd come by on weekends, sometimes weekdays if she wasn't feeling well. We baked scones together, organized her old photo albums, and I helped her digitize everything she wanted to leave behind. Not just money, sweetheart, she told me once, her soft hands dusted with flour. I want to leave my story behind. And you're the only one who ever cared to listen to it. Those words meant everything to me, especially because no one else in our family listened to her. Not really. My mom, Grandma's only daughter, died when I was 15. A sudden stroke. After that, I clung to Grandma like a lifeline. She became my anchor, and I hers. Uncle Gerald, my mother's older brother, had always been distant. He made good money in real estate and lived in Atlanta with his wife Lila and their 2 grown children. We rarely saw them unless there was money to be discussed. He called once every few months, always asking if Grandma had updated her estate plans. He never asked how she was doing, never asked how I was doing. Aunt Lila? Cold as ice. She'd show up in pearls and designer handbags, making subtle comments like, "It's a shame Elaine's house is just sitting there, collecting dust." When Grandma got diagnosed with early dementia, they didn't rush in to help. I did. I adjusted my client calls. I did her grocery runs. I read her prescriptions to her. I learned how to manage early memory loss with patience and love. And I kept helping her document everything. Her voice memos, her journals, her recipes. She wanted to leave behind more than wealth. She wanted to leave a legacy. One night, as we sat together watching Little Women, her favorite, she reached over and handed me a thin manila envelope. Inside was a typed will. "Just in case," she said softly. "Don't open it unless something feels wrong." Wrong how? You'll know. I didn't question her. I took the envelope home and slipped it between the pages of an old notebook. I never touched it again. Until the funeral. The funeral was difficult. Not just because I'd lost the woman who raised me after my mom passed away, but because of how fake everyone suddenly became. Uncle Gerald gave a speech as if he'd visited her every weekend. Lila cried more about the casket than the woman inside it. And the cousins? They started whispering about who'd get the house, who'd get the insurance, who'd take care of the estate. I stayed silent. I mourned in private. I knew Grandma wouldn't want her memory turned into a negotiation. But the tension escalated at the will reading. I walked into that sunroom already sensing something was off. Grandma's lawyer looked uncomfortable. There was a new will, typed, notarized, and conveniently signed just 2 months before she passed. It gave everything to Gerald. The house, the savings, the land. Me? Not even a mention of the hours I spent. The love I gave. Not even a photograph. I kept my face neutral. But inside, it was like my lungs collapsed. Still, I waited. Let the show play out. That night, I went home, poured a glass of wine, and opened the notebook. Inside, Grandma's original will. The one she handed me before the diagnosis. The one where everything was left to me. Her house. Her recipes. Her journals. Her library. A note was clipped to the back of the will. If this version ever disappears, that means someone tampered with the truth. Trust your instincts. I trust you more than anyone, Em. I spent the next few days replaying every memory in my head. How Gerald had rushed the funeral arrangements. How he insisted on using his own legal team. How he kept saying things like, "Let's just keep this simple." I realized I'd been gaslit for years. Gerald had always made me feel like the outsider. Like the side character in my own family story. But not anymore. I made an appointment with Mr. Barlow, Grandma's longtime attorney. When I showed him the original will, he went pale. This is her real signature. And it's dated 4 years before the other one. He pulled up his files. That's strange. The version Gerald submitted, it's missing certain verification protocols. And I never received this copy through my office. Someone had gone behind his back. Someone had replaced the will. Barlow nodded gravely. I'll take care of this. But you'll need to be ready. This won't be quiet. Over the next week, I prepared myself emotionally. I pulled together emails, texts, notes from Grandma. Anything that supported the timeline. I didn't tell anyone, not yet. I just stayed quiet. Because some storms don't need thunder to be dangerous. They need patience. And I was ready. It was a Monday morning when I walked into the same legal office where the forged will had first been read aloud. The scent of stale coffee and old files hung in the air. Gerald was already there, smug in his tailored gray suit, tapping on his phone like he didn't have a care in the world. Aunt Lila sat beside him, her lips pursed as if she were bracing for something unpleasant, like being seated near someone she considered beneath her. I wore a navy blue blazer, a neutral blouse, and flats that didn't click too loudly on the floor. I wanted no drama. Just truth. Mr. Barlow stepped in. He wasn't smiling. Everyone's here? He asked. Gerald gave a little wave. Let's just get this done, shall we? There's a lot to sort through. Barlow nodded, then turned to me. Emily. I pulled the original will from my folder. The one Grandma had handed me in the quiet of her living room, surrounded by her recipe cards and the smell of cinnamon. Barlow held it up. This document predates the submitted will. And after verification, it appears to be legitimate. Gerald scoffed. Oh, come on. That could be anything. Mom was sick. She probably didn't remember what she wanted by the end. Barlow didn't flinch. The document you submitted, Mr. Carter, is not registered with our office, which is unusual. In fact, it appears it was filed separately, using an out-of-state notary stamp that doesn't align with our legal protocols. Lila's face turned a shade paler. What are you saying? She asked, voice thin. Barlow placed both wills on the table, side by side. I'm saying that until further investigation is complete, the original will, dated 4 years prior, will be upheld as the legitimate version. Gerald slammed his palm on the table. This is ridiculous. She told me. She told all of us that she wanted to keep things simple. She didn't want a mess. I met his eyes for the first time that morning. She did want things simple. That's why she told the truth. The truth is always simple. The lies are what make it messy. He opened his mouth to argue, but I continued calmly. She gave me that will because she knew someone might try to rewrite her story. She trusted me to protect it. Barlow adjusted his glasses and nodded. There will be a formal hearing if you choose to contest. But you should know, if fraud is proven, criminal charges may follow. That shut Gerald up. Lila stood, her chair screeching behind her. So, what? You get everything now? The house? The land? All of it. I get what she wanted me to have, I said simply. That's all. No gloating. No smirking. Just truth. And it cut sharper than any insult ever could. Later that week, I walked into Grandma's house again. Only this time it was mine. The keys were cold in my hand as I turned the knob and stepped inside. The air smelled like lavender and dust. I walked through the hallway she used to shuffle through in her slippers, past the kitchen table where we shared Sunday breakfasts, into the living room where she'd fall asleep mid-conversation. I didn't cry. Not right away. I just stood there, surrounded by her memory. Then I walked into the little study, pulled open the desk drawer, and found it, exactly where I remembered. A leather-bound notebook. Her handwriting on the first page. To Emily, for every moment you felt invisible, I hope these words remind you. I saw you. I chose you. The tears came then. Not from grief. From recognition. I spent the next few weeks transitioning things. Utilities, insurance, basic housework. And in the meantime, I made a decision. I wasn't going to sell the house. I wasn't going to flip it or rent it out. I was going to turn it into something bigger, something Grandma would have loved. A community hub for seniors who needed tech help. A place where they could come for tutoring, resources, or just company. I filed the paperwork, applied for a community grant, launched a local campaign. I called it the Grace Room, named after one of Grandma's favorite words. One afternoon, while I was putting up a flyer outside the local grocery store, someone called my name. It was Mrs. Galloway, one of Grandma's oldest friends. You know, she said, your grandma always said you were the only one who saw her. I smiled. She said the same about me. Then she leaned in. We all knew something fishy happened with that will. No one wanted to say it out loud. But good on you for fixing it. I didn't respond with anything dramatic. Just a quiet, thank you. Because the victory wasn't in the drama. It was in the restoration. In making things right, not loud. Just clear. One day, a package arrived on my doorstep. No return label. Inside, a photo of Grandma and me at her kitchen table, laughing. Taped to the back. You were always her favorite. She just didn't say it out loud enough. No signature. But I knew it was from my cousin Claire. The one who'd stayed quiet during the whole ordeal. Sometimes silence isn't absence. It's observation. And sometimes, those who say nothing carry the deepest truths. It didn't take long for the ripple to turn into waves. After the original will was reinstated and confirmed as valid by the probate court, Gerald and Aunt Lila weren't just furious. They were unraveling. It started with cold texts, then icy emails, then full-on threats of a legal battle. Gerald sent me an email with the subject line, "You'll regret this." Inside, "Don't think this means you've won. You're not better than us. You just got lucky. You really want this to get ugly?" I didn't reply. I forwarded it to Mr. Barlow. Then came Lila's voicemails, sharp, accusatory, laced with guilt. "This is what you want? To split the family? Your grandmother would be sick if she saw what you were doing." I wanted to scream back, "You split this family the moment you picked greed over love." But I didn't. I chose silence again. Not because I was weak, but because I had strength they didn't understand. A week later, I ran into Gerald at the farmer's market. I was walking out with a bag of fresh tomatoes. He was standing near his new car, arms folded, as if he'd been waiting. "Did you really think this would end clean?" he asked, stepping in front of me. "Didn't you?" I said. "You humiliated us." "No," I said slowly, carefully. "You did that to yourselves when you forged a will." His jaw clenched. "We were just fixing her mistake. You weren't even in the conversation when she was planning everything. You left." "I moved to care for myself," I said. "That wasn't absence, it was survival." "Don't play victim," he hissed. "You were always her pet. Her little charity case." The words hit, but not like they once would have. Because now I could see it clearly. His rage wasn't about me. It was about control slipping through his fingers. He leaned closer. "This isn't over." And for the first time in my life, I didn't flinch. I smiled. "I hope not, because I'm not done helping people." Later that month, we had our final family mediation. Lila came with a new attorney, young, smug, ready to challenge the will. But the judge shut it down in minutes. "Forgery is not up for debate. If you wish to file criminal appeals, be my guest. But this document stands." Lila's lawyer shrank back. Lila just stared at me. I can't believe you're doing this, she muttered. She wanted us to stay together. She wanted us to be honest, I said. And we failed her the moment we weren't. Across the room, someone cleared their throat. It was Claire, my cousin, the only one who hadn't picked sides. She stepped forward slowly. I have something to say, she said. I was there the night they printed the new will. I didn't sign it, but I didn't stop it either. I was scared, but I'm not anymore. Gerald sat up straighter. Claire. She turned to him. No. I'm not covering for you anymore. She handed the judge a flash drive. These are the security cam recordings from the office printer. You'll see the dates, the file names. I stared at her, breath caught in my throat. Claire looked at me and nodded. I should have done this sooner. After court, I caught up with her in the parking lot. You didn't have to do that, I said. Yes, I did, she said. You were brave first. I just followed your lead. We hugged for the first time in years. It didn't fix everything, but it started something. Meanwhile, Gerald's perfect world began to crumble. His firm started asking questions. Rumors about the will forgery reached his boss. Clients backed away. A quiet investigation was launched. Lila? She lost her community board position. People began to whisper. Wasn't she part of that inheritance scandal? But here's the thing. I didn't cheer. I didn't post about it. I didn't dance on their downfall. Because that wasn't the point. The point was reclaiming what was mine. Restoring my grandmother's wishes. And building something in the ashes of betrayal that could last. I poured my energy into the Grace room. Every week, more people showed up. Seniors who wanted to learn how to video call their grandkids. Veterans looking to understand online health services. Widows who just wanted someone to talk to. I taught them one by one. And they taught me in return. One afternoon, Ms. Evelyn, a quiet woman in her 70s, came in. I heard you help people, she said. I try, I replied. My daughter hasn't spoken to me in years, she whispered. She sent me a message last week. Said she's willing to FaceTime. But I don't know how. I held out my hand. We'll figure it out together. That evening, Evelyn placed her trembling fingers on the screen. The call connected. Her daughter's face appeared. Older, softer. Mom, and Evelyn just cried. Not loudly, but like something broken had finally found its shape again. I stepped out quietly and let her have the moment. Because that was the mission. Not revenge. Restoration. Healing. A month later, Gerald showed up at the Grace room. I was stunned. He looked different. Tired. Deflated. Smaller. He didn't come to argue. He stood outside for nearly 20 minutes before stepping in. When he did, he approached me slowly. I lost everything, he said. Job. Reputation. Even Amanda's leaving. I nodded. I heard. I just wanted to, I don't know, see what you built. I handed him a pamphlet. It's not much, but it's real. He looked around the room. Saw the community. The laughter. The learning. I used to think legacy meant power, he said quietly. Now I think maybe it means presence. I didn't answer. Didn't forgive. But I didn't slam the door shut either. I let him look around. Let him see what truth looked like. That was enough. Some endings don't need to be loud to be final. After Gerald's visit, things settled into something quieter. Not perfect. Not healed. But calm. And for the first time in my life, I didn't crave justice like a fire. I wanted peace like water. So I focused on what I could control. I set boundaries. I called Aunt Lila. Not to argue. Just to speak plainly. I'm not interested in revenge, I said. But I'm also not interested in pretending anymore. You don't get to rewrite history, she snapped. No, I replied. But I do get to choose how I live with it. There was silence. And then she hung up. And that somehow felt like closure. Claire and I grew closer. She started volunteering at the Grace room twice a week. She wasn't perfect, but she was present. One afternoon, she stayed behind after closing and asked, "Do you ever miss how things were before?" I smiled sadly. No. I miss how I thought they were. She nodded.
Yeah.
Me too. Then she helped me sweep the floor. Sometimes that's how healing starts, not in big gestures, but in brooms and silence and shared space. And then there was the letter. The one I had found in Grandma's drawer all those months ago. The original college acceptance letter addressed to me, hidden away. I hadn't opened it again since that night. But one morning, after restocking printers in the office, I pulled it out. The paper was thinner now, edges soft with time. I read it again, not with longing, but with clarity. I used to think that letter was proof I had been robbed. Now I saw it differently. It was proof that I was always meant for more, even when others tried to bury it. I didn't need the college title. I had built a classroom of my own, a movement, a space. One day, I was showing an elderly man how to create a password when he stopped mid-lesson. "You remind me of my daughter," he said, always fixing things with a soft touch. I blinked away tears. Because that's what I'd been trying to do all along. Fix the broken, gently. Not with revenge, but with presence. Weeks later, Mom visited the Grace room. She didn't say much, just looked around, touched the freshly painted walls, and smiled. "Looks like you made something beautiful here," she whispered. I handed her tea, like Grandma used to. "Thanks," I said. I learned from the best. We sat by the window in silence. And for once, that was enough. I used part of the inheritance to create a scholarship in Grandma's name. The Grace Thompson Digital Courage Fund. For seniors who wanted to learn tech. For single mothers returning to school. For the quiet ones who were told, maybe next time, too many times. It didn't make headlines. But it changed lives. And the rest of the money? I didn't blow it. I reinvested in the community. I partnered with local libraries to create mobile tech learning vans for rural areas. We called them the Grace Mobiles. Our slogan? Because it's never too late to connect. Gerald never came back. I heard he moved to Denver. Took a job managing accounts for a startup. A quieter life. Lila faded from the family circle. Some relatives still visit her. I don't. Not out of hatred. Just choice. And every time someone asks what happened, I say, it's complicated, but I'm at peace now. Because I am. And then, one rainy Sunday afternoon, a package arrived. No name on the return label. Inside, a small wooden frame. No photo. Just a note. The strongest revenge is peace. You earned both.
Gee.
I placed the frame on my desk. Did I forgive him? Maybe not fully. But maybe that wasn't the point. I saw Evelyn again, the older woman who'd cried during that FaceTime call. She walked in holding a plate of cookies and said, "Guess who's moving in with me? My daughter." We hugged. She whispered, "I didn't just get my tech confidence back. I got my family back." That's when I knew. The cycle had changed. The pain hadn't disappeared, but it had been transformed. Some nights, when I lock up the center, I look up at the sky and say, "I hope you're watching, Grandma." Because everything I built, every folder labeled, every confused student reassured, every quiet success story, it was for her. Not for the applause. Not for the revenge. But for the restoration of what her love had planted. 6 months later, the world looked different. Not louder, just lighter. The Grace room had doubled in size. What once was a tiny back office tucked between a thrift store and an abandoned dry cleaner was now a fully renovated space with new windows, natural light, and a community mural. Painted on the side wall, a tree made of open palms, each handprint belonging to someone who had learned something here. We didn't paint names, just colors. Because this place wasn't about credit, it was about connection. I walked in one morning, the scent of coffee and fresh paint in the air, and saw a little boy helping his grandmother log into Zoom. "See," he whispered. "I told you it's not that scary." She giggled, cheeks flushed with pride. Okay, you were right." That moment? It was everything I had fought for. Generations talking. No fear. No shame. Just a bridge. Claire ran the front desk now. She didn't just find her way, she carved it. She started her own program teaching young girls in foster care how to code. She named it Hidden Letters, A nod to the ones that were meant for us, but never reached us. I asked her once what made her start it. She smiled, shrugged. I figured if Grandma could hide a letter to protect her future, maybe I could write one to protect someone else's. Mom comes by once a week. She always brings something small, fresh bread, a poem she found, or just time. She never talks about the past. She just shows up. And maybe, for us, that's the apology. She still signs her notes in blue ink.
I have a drawer full of them now.
They aren't trophies. They're reminders that healing isn't loud. It's consistent. One evening, I sat by the front window, watching rain slide down the glass. In my hand was that old college letter. Still folded. Still unframed. But I no longer saw it as a missed opportunity. I saw it as the seed. It didn't bloom in a dorm room. It bloomed here, between walls I rebuilt, with people I chose, in a life I wasn't handed, but created. A local journalist stopped by and asked to do a feature. They called it, From Erased to Empowered, How One Woman Reclaimed Her Story. I allowed it, not because I needed praise, but because someone out there might be where I was, questioning their worth, wondering if silence would swallow their dreams whole. And I wanted them to know, silence can grow flowers too if you plant with care. The day of the ribbon-cutting ceremony for our second mobile van, I wore Grandma's old brooch, the silver one shaped like a dove. People took photos, gave speeches. I kept my remarks short. I'm not standing here because I was given a spotlight, I said. I'm standing here because I refuse to let the dark win. Applause followed, but I didn't need it, because the truth? I'd already heard the loudest clap of all, within myself. Later that week, we held a celebration at the center. No fancy decor. Just paper lanterns, homemade cupcakes, and a lot of love. Lisa, remember her? Gerald's ex-wife, showed up too. She brought her daughter. I heard about what you did, she said softly. For Grace. For yourself. I nodded. Thank you, she added. For showing me there's a way out. A way up. We hugged. Not like enemies forgiven, but like survivors recognizing each other's healing. Everywhere I looked that night, I saw echoes of Grandma. In the women teaching each other to use apps. In the teens writing resumes for their elders. In the quiet, radiant pride in the eyes of every person who'd been told they were too late. I stayed behind after everyone left, swept the floor, turned off the lights. And then I walked outside, into the still night. Stars above. Cool breeze on my face. I closed my eyes and whispered, You were right, Grandma. I wasn't invisible. And in that silence, I could almost hear her answer.
Told you so, honey.
Told you so. That night, I placed the brooch beside the framed community mural photo on my desk. The rain had stopped, the moon shone clean and soft, and I finally understood the hum in my chest. It wasn't anger. It wasn't pain. It was peace. The kind that stays. The kind you earn. The kind that whispers. You didn't just reclaim your story. You rewrote it in your own voice. And that was more than enough.